Chapter 15. Ganesha's Incarnation as Dundiraj. O Brahmanaspate, you are the support of all creation, the Brahma, the guardian of all devotees, and are the savior of all. Holding this aspect of yours, I found that your powers can be experienced only after silencing the mind and speech. In your incarnation of Dundiraj, you have been glorified in the Puranas for killing Durasad Asura. The secret of that incarnation is that when Shiva and Parvati worshipped Ganesha and did penance for a long period of time, they discovered that their Atma was born as their son, who was named Dundiraj. Dundiraj is the one who is found only through the worship of Ganesha and the strength of Bhakti Yoga. He is the son born through meditative union of Shiva and Parvati. The name Dundiraj signifies the answers to one's search. Daitya Durasad was an embodiment of the worst ego. He was invincible and could not be killed by anybody. As a result, he had an inflated ego which is full of pride and arrogance. No one could win over him. This is the meaning of the name Durasad. As mentioned in the Puranas, it was to kill this Durasad that Ganesha incarnated as Dundiraj. I do namaskar to the one who killed Durasad and brought joy to the whole world. The pilgrimage center of Kashi and Vishweshwar, Shankar were blessed that they will never be separated. But for some reason, when Shankara was away, King Devodas, seeing Kashi without Shankar, captured the kingdom and separated them. Under those circumstances, Dundiraj incarnated and encased Devodas in the delusion of Maya, wherein he regained Kashi and gave it to Shiva. King Priyavrath and Queen Kirti, great devotees of Ganesha, once took their 4-year-old son to have darshan of Dundiraj at Kashi. Both of them worshipped Lord Ganesha with durva grass and mandar flowers. That worship of a single day during the month of Magh on Chaturthi pleased Dundiraj and he gave them his darshan. He gave Kirti's son a parashu or hatchet with his own hand and named him Parashubhahu. Due to his intense devotion to Ganesh king, Parashubhahu became a great yogi. Varenyavacha ka Shuklagati ruddhishta ka cha Krishna gajanana kim brahma samsruti kame vaktumarhyasanugrahat. King Varenya does namaskar to Shri Gajanan Prabhu and asks, you mentioned 2 types of gati for a sadhak. Now please tell me the path which will lead to enlightenment. What are the characteristics of Krishnagati and how do we recognize Shuklagati? Please tell me. Also please tell me which Brahma is attained through Shuklagati and how do we know that? What is the nature of the world acquired through Krishnagati? Please also tell me the yoga for developing steadfast faith in you. And how can I attain the siddhi of absolute devotion? O Gajanana, you are the embodiment of kindness. Bestow your grace upon me and tell me everything about it. Shri Gajanana Vacha Agnir Jyotiraha Shukla Karmarha Mayanam Gati Chandram Jyoti Swata Dhumo Ratrischa Dakshinayanam. Shri Gajanan Prabhu replied, first listen to the characteristics of Shuklagati, which can be attained only through desireless actions. When my most excellent devotee makes efforts to attain liberation by doing his dharma, ordained actions, and surrenders them all to me, when such a great devotee who does the spiritual practices but has not yet got the eye of wisdom necessary for meditative union, dies before attaining siddhis, then the gati on the passage after death is called Shuklagati. The main thing that determines the attainment of Shuklagati are 1. His death should occur during the passage of the sun towards tropic of Cancer, and 2. He should have died during the day. When a person dies at night during the movement of the sun towards the tropic of Capricorn, then the passage attained by a person after death is called Krishnagati. If a sadhak doing desireless actions happens to die during the day, Then that night he spends near the fire of thirst in the form of a flame. Thereafter, with the dawn of day, the flame of the conscious soul is assisted by the god of lamps and becomes one with the god of day. The same thing is true for a desireless sadhak who dies at night during the northward movement of the sun. After the northward movement of the sun, he attains the next stage of Shuklagati. What is the fate of a desireless sadhak who happens to die during the southward movement of the sun towards the Tropic of Capricorn? Such a desireless sadhak who has attained Krishnagati attains the path of liberation after death, similar to the sadhak of Shuklagati. Krishnagati does not interfere with his progress. The sadhak who becomes one with God of the day remains like that till the end of the southward movement of the sun. The moment the northward movement of the sun begins, he starts staying with the sun. In the case of Krishnagati, there are steps in between. But when the transit of the sun is northwards and he attains Shuklagati, his passage is through the fire of thirst and the deity of Uttarayana stays with him as Tat. One day of Brahma in a kalpa is the dissolution of the sun. The conscious soul who has attained Shuklagati remains within the consciousness of Aditya, the sun. As per the nature and glory of this abode, the nature of the causal matter with the sadhak's consciousness melts away and gets absorbed into the power of consciousness as a whole and is forever devoid of any enchantments. The yogic spiritual practice that takes place is the connection to the Brahma beyond causal and conscious matter. After achieving the psychic powers of consciousness, his awareness for a separate individual, conscious soul, gets destroyed. As per the serial order, he contemplates on the glory of Swananda beyond causal and conscious matter, which is nothing but the glory of Ganesha. He gets blessed with enlightened peace. The Shuklagati sadhak becomes a yogi. The sadhak is able to get this highest fruit due to his strength of holding on to my power through devotion. Otherwise, it's not possible. When there is a Mahapralaya, that is total annihilation, there is complete dissolution of causal matter. The annihilation and dissolution of the Tattvam Pada, of the causal and conscious matter, into the Asipada happens, and the sadhak too gives up the essence of consciousness and gets absorbed into the Asipada. This is Shuklagati. Krishnagati. A sadhak with desires may attain Krishnagati. If a person dies at night and during the movement of the sun towards the Tropic of Capricorn, he attains Krishnagati. If a sadhak with desires happens to die during the day, he along with the fire of thirst becomes smoke and remains with the god of smoke. If the dead body is allowed to flow in the river, it gets absorbed and remains in the submarine fire present within the water. If the dead body of an individual is buried in the earth, it gets absorbed into the earth due to the tejas or heat of the earth. In short, a corpse gets absorbed into the god of the element where it falls or is laid to rest. In the case of Krishnagati too, the process is the same. For a sadhak who dies during the day, but the moment night falls, then according to his karmic enjoyment, he goes to heaven. There he enjoys the fruits of all his actions. Such a sadhak who has attained Krishnagati and has perhaps died during the northward movement of the sun gets absorbed into the god of night. Thereafter, with the commencement of the southward movement of the sun, his gati is towards Swargaloka, where he goes and enjoys the fruits of his actions. If some sadhak does all good deeds and surrenders them to each of those respective deities, then whatever karmas he did for the attainment of each of those deities, he gets those respective abodes for the enjoyment of the fruits of his actions. There, the power of enjoyment is of Chandra Jyoti. We need to understand the significance of Chandra Jyoti. There are 16 phases of the moon. The quantum of merits of fruits of actions depends upon the level of exertion in doing good karmas. The accumulation of nectar based on good deeds keeps increasing during the Shukla Paksha, which is the bright phase of the moon, by one phase every day, from the first day till the full moon day. On the full moon day, it gets completed. In the Krishna Paksha, on the waning phase of the moon, one phase gets reduced every day, and the nectar of the moon is savoured accordingly by the gods in the Swargaloka. The gods in Swarga consume the nectar only to the extent of the authority wielded by them. On the new moon day, the nectar remains on the earth. Hence, the nectar of the moon is available to medicinal plants on the earth because he is the lord of medicinal plants. Therefore, it has been mentioned in the Shastras that medicinal plants should not be cut on new moon days. With reference to this, there is a shloka in the 9th Khand of Sri Mudgal Puran, chapter 12, which says, Ata aushada yachedya narena naiva nishchitam amanyam chandra sanyoga yuktaha sukha parayanaha. It is clear from the sloka how a sadhak who has gained Krishnagati because of his kind and good deeds attains the fruits thereof, and how they reach the moon. However, after enjoying everything, there is a downfall once again. The sadhak who does all deeds with desires attains the light of the moon and enjoys all things in Swargaloka. After all the enjoyments, the jiva takes birth again and comes down on the earth. He explains how this happens. He says, firstly he goes to heaven with water-laden clouds. From there it descends on the medicinal plants and increases their potency. The food that is eaten by the Purusha becomes the semen, and under conducive circumstances it enters the womb of a woman and is conceived in the womb. The condition of the fetus in the womb attains completion around the 6th month. There is movement of the fetus in the womb around the 7th month. In the 8th month, its intellect develops, due to which the jiva in the womb begins to gather all kinds of knowledge. As a result, the jiva starts experiencing the joys and sorrows that come to him through the body. While in the womb of the mother, the tiny living organism in the womb hurt the unborn child, which distresses him to a great extent. When the pain becomes unbearable, then slowly and gradually the jiva in the womb begins fainting. The jiva starts feeling distressed when the body develops completely by the end of 9 months and the space in the womb becomes very restricted. He feels helpless as the womb is only 12 palm breadths in length, which is insufficient for him to grow further. Thereafter, the size of the womb starts growing. In such a condition, the jiva starts remembering his previous births. He recollects the whole process in vivid detail, as though experiencing it all over again. He develops fear, but then he remembers the knowledge of yoga and the knowledge that he is verily the Atman. He starts praying to me, O God of all gods, Gajanana, you have forsaken me in this sorrow. Please bestow your grace upon me so that I do not have to go through this stay in the womb ever again. In this manner, that jiva remembers me in different ways and prays and keeps singing my praise. Once the stay in the womb is over, the jiva is born into this world, and due to the force of the air entering into his lungs, naturally, the jiva faints. But after some moments, he becomes conscious again and starts crying. When he comes out of the womb, the jiva forgets the meditative union and the yogic knowledge completely. He becomes totally ignorant as he enters childhood. When he starts engaging in karma with the same mind, his future path is determined. This is the whole Krishnagati. In the original shloka, Krishnagati has been described as Chandram Jyotihi Dhum Ratrihi Dakshinayanam. This only determines the path of devotion. The practices of karmas and the worship that a sadhak who wants enjoyment and liberation should do is described from here on. A sadhak who dies during the northward movement of the sun or during the day follows a mixed path and first goes to Agni Loka or the abode of fire. After enjoying everything there, he becomes an expatriate and step by step becomes depleted of all material aspects, after which he goes to Shakti Loka for practice of yoga. After staying in Shakti Loka for some time, he attains the superconscious meditative union. Thereafter, with more and more practice, he attains the psychic powers of being in the state of Shuddha Brahma. Beyond that is the state of Asat Swananda, which gets transformed into supraconscious meditative union. His gati extends up to that limit. By that time, his stay at Shakti Loka and the work to be done there gets completed. Thereafter, the sadhak goes to Saura Loka, where, after actualization of Satswananda, his gati takes him to Mahavaikuntha Loka, where he actualizes the Samaswananda Brahma through the actualization of supraconscious meditative union. By the time he becomes anxious and yearns to achieve the permanent state of Brahma. Therefore, he doesn't have any desire to enjoy what is there in Vaikuntha. Thereafter, the sadhak goes to Mahakailash Loka. There he does spiritual practice to actualize the unmanifest Swananda to be bestowed by Sahaja Brahma Shiva. Thus, he does spiritual practice of Shiva Yoga and attains complete Siddhi in that. After accomplishing all the spiritual practices, the yogi goes to Swananda Loka, which is the bestower of absolute self-knowing, through actualization of Sanyoga Swananda. After attaining the actualization of meditative union, he becomes the state of Brahma. There are two stages of yoga, union and non-differentiation, Sanyoga and Ayoga, which are achieved one after the other. After completely attaining the supraconscious meditative union, the sadhak attains the yoga of enlightened peace. He is said to have attained the complete non-differentiated yoga at the abode of Shri Gajanan Prabhu. He being the embodiment of the supreme state in the Shuklagati, those who desire to attain bhukti and mukti, both enjoyment and liberation, do all the ordained karmas with eagerness accompanied by total detachment and achieve this as well. Sri Gargya Maharshi has also elaborately explained the process in his commentary. The sadhak who dies at night during the southward movement of the sun goes to Swargaloka, and after enjoying the expected enjoyments, he once again takes birth on the earth. Then he only has the desire for liberation, and with practice of the necessary spiritual practice, he becomes free. This is the path for ordinary sadhaks. Now the worshippers of different gods get the gati according to the loka of the god of their devotion. So the sadhak who is a devotee of one specific god, after death he goes to the loka of that god. After doing spiritual practice there, he attains the related psychic powers. At the time he has no expectation of the southward movement of the sun or the smoke, etc. The moment he dies, he goes to the loka of his deity of devotion. When all the karmas are done with an attitude of surrender to the god of karmas, the sadhak with desires goes to the loka of that respective god. He enjoys everything there and becomes free of all tendencies and once again takes birth on earth. The sadhak who desires liberation makes efforts only to attain liberation, after which he attains psychic powers and then accomplishes the siddhi of being in the state of Purna Brahma. Such a sadhak does not aspire for Shuklagati or Krishnagati. Such a sadhak, who is the embodiment of Purna Yoga, after attaining the Yoga Siddhi of non-differentiation, becomes completely liberated. Thus, while doing the yogic spiritual practice, the path of Shuklagati and Krishnagati is explained for those sadhaks who die before being blessed with the eye of wisdom. In this manner, both types of gati have been described here. When a particular sadhak is the worshipper of only one god and does the worship as ordained in the scriptures, then the moment he dies, he goes to the loka of the god of his worship, for whom he has special respect. Therefore, he is not concerned whether he gets Shukla or Krishnagati. But for a sadhak who does not worship any particular deity, but is firm in following his own dharma, it is for them that the path of Shuklagati or Krishnagati has been described. Krishnate Brahma Samsrityo Ravapte Karanam Gati Drishya Drishyamidam Sarvam Brahmaivetyavadharaya. After listening to all this explanation, King Varinya asks Kim Brahma, which means which Brahma will the sadhak attain? Shri Gajanan Prabhu replied, through Krishnagati, the cycle of birth and death goes on in the world. It is attained by all those sadhaks who entertain a desire in their actions, while those sadhaks who do their karmas without any desire attain Shuklagati, by which they attain the state of Brahma. 5 dehas and their knowledge. How does one recognize Brahma and also know which Brahma it is? Listen. When it is possible to actually know the gross, subtle, causal, greater causal, and the bindu or kaivalya, the 5 types of body are visible objects which have the support of the 5 types of dehi bearing their own pride of being. But when it is not possible to show them separately by any specific characteristic, then the 5 types of dehi are said to be non-visible. In this manner, through the knowledge of the 5 types of deha and the 5 types of dehi, when we know the power of knowing on which they depend for support, the meaning of Brahma, whether visible or invisible, becomes clear. He then proceeds to explain how to know the deha and dehi. Ksharam panchatmakam vidhi tadantaraksharam smrutam ubhabhyam yadati krantam shuddham vidhi sanatanam. The 5 types of deha, with permutations of 3 gunas, take numerous forms, names and forms in this world of creation. But they are all temporary or perishable. It is the waking state which is gross and has a length of 3.5 times the length of a hand. Each person's measurement is different. Within the gross body is the linga deha or the knowledge body, which can be known from its extension up to 12 times the measure of the breadth of a finger. It is not destroyable, and this body has to undergo the different kinds of yoga and the auspicious and inauspicious actions thereof. The gross body in the awakened state is manifested in these 2 types, and it is where the soul resides. This is the wakeful state of the power of Brahma. At the collective level, the gross body of the wakeful state, Brahma along with its ego, is called Vishwa. So the one who stays in this Vishwa and functions through the collective ego is called Vaishwanara. Just as the gross body and the knowledge body are at an individual level, similarly at the collective level they are Vishwa and Vaishwanara. Thus, to know the body in action, we have to know the length of 3.5 times the length of a hand. And to know the knowledge body, we have to know 12 times the breadth of a finger. The wakeful state has different egos at the collective level where all the actions take place. When the duality of the wakeful state is given up, the non-differentiated form is experienced, which is the bearer of the awakened state, gross body, called Jagat Brahma. Now I shall tell you about the bearer of the dream state, known as Swapna Brahma. In this state, the size of the external form of the actionable body is only the height of a thumb. The internal knowledge body within the linga body is 12 times the breadth of a finger. The external body is the action body, and the internal body is the knowledge body, through which a jiva acts during the dream state. The individual soul residing in the dream state body in that separate creation is known as Tejas. At the collective level of the Virata form, it is known as Hiranyagarbha, and where the dual state is accomplished in the non-differentiated state, it is the Swapna Brahma. The completion of all the subtle states takes place here. Continuing on the same lines, the deep sleep state body, which is the size of a thumb, also has an external body, a linga deha and an ego within. At the individual level, it is known as Prajna, and at the collective level, it is known as Ishvara. So this Jivatma, which is endowed with this duality, attains unity at the place of Abheda or non-differentiation, which is the Saushupta Brahma, the enjoyer of the state of bliss. The origin of the gross and subtle bodies is in the Saushupta Brahma, with joy as its natural state. The fourth Deha is the Turya ego, the enjoyer of the pride of the Atma within. The size of this Deha is that of a grain of masoor dal. The duality and the completion of Abheda are known in the same way as for the other states. The unmanifest Atman is the same in the individual and the collective, which is the eternal blissful Brahma. When the Turya state is given up, the dualities of all the three bodies are forgotten. The Brahma experienced is known as Chaitanya Brahma. The fifth body is the Kaivalya Deha, whose size is the thickness of a hair. Since it is stated as the tip of a hair, the total body is experienced and there are no differences of action, knowledge and ego. When all the four Deha and Dehi are completely experienced through meditative union, the experience of the vision or knowledge is Deha. What is significant here is that the gross, subtle, causal, greater causal and Kaivalya, all these five bodies being perishable, are depleting in nature. The pride in each of these five bodies, which is the holder of power, is known as Chid Brahma. Its nature is Soham and it is imperishable and the knower within. So, when it assumes the support of and get deluded by Maya, it forgets the joy of oneness of the Atman. As a result of this delusion, the knowledge of his form disappears. Chid Brahma is devoid of birth and death and hence imperishable. The five types of Deha are perishable, but the Atman within is Soham Brahma, which is imperishable. Thus, the power of knowing, which is beyond the concept of perishable and non-perishable, or depleting and non-depleting, is Brahma, and it is Sanatan or eternal. Sri Gargya Maharshi writes, the gross, subtle and causal are the three types of bodies that are visible and subject to destruction. They are Tvampada in nature. The unmanifest, like the greater causal body, is invisible and in the Turya state, which is Tatpada. Apart from the world of Tvampada is the Asipada Brahma, who is devoid of the duality of depletion and non-depletion. The food sheath is of two types, the individual and the collective. After the experience of the non-differentiated form of the individual and collective, the Jagat Brahma gets actualized. In the same way, the prana sheath, mental sheath and intellectual sheath are of dream state. Ananda sheath, which is the Saushupta Brahma, is only experiential. In this manner, the manifested body of the three types, with its five types of sheaths, is perishable in nature. After the experience of different types of creations in their non-differentiated aspect, one experiences the Atma or consciousness, which is the Turya body. It is a particle of the whole power. The knower within this and the bearer of power is imperishable and is called Akshar. One should have the power of discrimination to understand this. In the waking state, the only experience is of the gross body. The experience of the subtle is possible only in the dream state, which happens due to the prana sheath. The experience of resolutions, opinions and conclusions happen due to the mental sheath, and the experience of heat and cold is due to the intellectual sheath. Since it is known through the experience of other things, it is said to be the subtle state. In this way, the gross body is the cause of the subtle, which remains equanimous in both states. Where there is only the experience of joy, it is the bliss sheath, which is the spirit in the Saushupta body and is called Saushupta Brahma. The memory of dreams in the waking state is due to Sushupti. The Turya body, which is the origin of all efforts, and its form is Chaitanya or awareness. In these four types of Deha, there is a source of pride, which is the perishable knowledge body. But the bearer of life within it is the imperishable, unmanifested Chidatman. The Akshar state has no birth and death, but due to the covering of ignorance, it assumes the state of a Jiva. It is destroyed only through the fire of knowledge gained in meditative union. Otherwise, it being indestructible is known as Akshar. One has to necessarily experience that which is beyond perishable and imperishable, namely the 8 types of superconscious, the 4 types of Deha and the 4 types of Dehi, totaling 8 types of superconscious which cannot be narrated. Beyond that duality is supraconscious meditative union, while Brahma is beyond the perishable and the imperishable. Since there is no possibility of perishability and non-perishability, therefore it is Shuddha Brahma. It is spread everywhere in the perishable and imperishable creation and is therefore known as Sanatan or eternal. Thus, before the beginning, in the middle, and in the end, the Brahma remains as it is. Understand the meaning of this as it leads to self-ascent or Swata Uttan called Bodha Brahma. In this manner, after describing all the Brahmas, he proceeds to describe the mortal life. Aneka janma sambhuti samsruti parikirtita samsrutim prapnuvantyete yetu mam ganayantina. Shri Gajanan Prabhu says, the individual who gets carried away by the enchantments of Maya foolishly entertains desires for the pleasures of his body alone and therefore gets caught up in the cycle of birth and death. This is called sansar. The illusions of Maya are so vast that the jiva caught up in them does not know me at all. That is why he gets engulfed in the sorrows of the world. After listening so far, questions arose in the mind of King Varenya. He said, will this jiva who has drowned himself in the enchantments of Maya ever develop taste for the path of meditative union? How will he ever evolve? Are there any easy methods? What preliminary steps can be taken? Please tell me. Ye mam samyagupasante param brahma prayanti te dhyanadherupacharair mam tata panchamritadibihi. Shri Gajanan Prabhu says, a thirsty seeker, even though he may not have any special affinity for meditative union, may entertain to get psychic powers and hence may worship my form with attributes with all earnestness and follow all the rituals as prescribed by the scriptures. When he worships my form with attributes, his vasanas get fulfilled and his mental vital consciousness substance gets purified. This creates a desire for the path of meditative union. The influence of my worship is that he does all actions progressively in an attitude of surrender to me. With unwavering mind and straight intellect, one should worship my form with attributes by following all the rituals ordained by the Shastras. If such a devotee of mine dies before getting the necessary knowledge, then he goes to Swananda Loka. After becoming a jnani, there he practices yoga and attains the siddhi of being in the state of Brahma. Then he does not have to be born again. End of chapter 15.